Welcome to Better Than Breakeven, where we explore innovative tactics that ranchers are using to boost their bottom line and, quite honestly, their moods, and thrive in today's ever-challenging agricultural landscape. I am Haley Shipp. I am the Communications and Outreach Lead with the Rancher Stewardship Alliance. We are a rancher-founded, rancher-led nonprofit based in north central Montana. Now, I'm excited to be your guide on this journey through the world of ranching. In each episode, we're going to dive into some strategies, methods, and insights that some of our most successful ranchers are using, not to just break even, but to truly excel. From rotational grazing and soil health management to diversification and value-added products to unlikely partnerships, we'll explore a wide range of approaches that have proven to make a real difference for ranchers within our Ranchers Stewardship Alliance community. On today's episode, why does the World Wildlife Fund want to partner with my ranch? And what's in it for me? Here is my discussion with Montana rancher Amber Smith and Alexis Bonagofsky, manager of the World Wildlife Fund's Sustainable Ranching Initiative.
My name is Amber Smith, and I ranch in eastern Montana. We're about 3 hours northeast of Billings, for those of you who know where Billings, Montana is. And we lease a ranch here, Antelope Springs Ranch, which is 53,000 acres of predominantly native grassland. And I am here with my husband, Trevor, and our 2 children, Aubrey and Teddy.
Okay. And Alexis, how about who you are and where you're from?
Hi, I'm Alexis Bonagofsky, and I am the manager of World Wildlife Fund Sustainable Ranching Initiative. And I am based just outside of Billings, Montana, on a small sheep operation that I grew up on. So my family is from here, and my parents actually ran tire stores in Billings. So.
All right. Well, as we get into this discussion, we're looking at different ways that ranchers can add value. And we often do this with how we might market our calves, doing certain programs, antibiotic free. Maybe it's based on a hide color. There are ways that we can strategically maybe make some small amendments to what we're currently doing on our operation in order to help the bottom line, some years more than others. But we're focusing in on one program today. It is the RSVP program through WWF, and I am speaking in acronyms that I'm going to let Alexis kind of spread out for us, because the world of acronyms only works if you are in it. So Alexis, as we get started, let's start with WWF. People know you for the cute little panda, and it's a panda that sometimes can be met with some resistance in the ranching environment. So explain to me what this organization is, who you are, and why you're involved with ranching in the first place.
Sure. So WWF does not stand for World Wrestling Federation. It stands for World Wildlife Fund. It is a global conservation organization with field programs in various countries, including the United States. And so there is a Northern Great Plains program that works to help conserve the Northern Great Plains, which is one of the last 4 remaining intact grasslands in the world. So the interest of World Wildlife Fund is healthy grasslands that support communities and rural livelihoods. And so 70% of the intact grasslands are owned by private landowners, mostly ranchers. And so it's really important for World Wildlife Fund to work collaboratively with ranchers and private landowners for the health of the grassland ecosystem.
And so that's what brings in this RSVP program, which great acronym title. Of course, I'm sure when people were naming this, they thought, oh, that's going to roll off the tongue. So that's a good one. So explain RSVP.
Yeah, so RSVP stands for Ranch Systems and Viability Planning, and it was conceived of a couple years ago by collaboratively with some corporations that were interested in resilient supply chains. And the program is meant to support ranchers with grazing and education and technical assistance and ecological monitoring. So it's a very holistic program that looks to help support ranchers in their goals on their ranches. So we have 4 major components. We have ecological monitoring. We have technical assistance if the rancher is interested. We have money to pay for educational activities such as grazing schools or soil health workshops or ranching for profit. And then we also support the development of ranching infrastructure that helps improve grazing management. So we have a cost share program as well. When ranches enroll with us under RSVP, they agree to no conversion of any grasslands that they've enrolled into the program for 10 years. So a short-term protection of those grasslands. They agree to develop a grazing management plan if they don't already have one. They agree to allow ecological monitoring on their ranch, and that they will participate in educational programming that they feel like they need.
And Alexis, you said 10 years is the timeline. Is that the timeline for everyone? That's what you do?
Yep, okay. A 10-year no conversion agreement. Yes, but it's not it's a agreement that is in good faith with the landowner. So it's not a part of the deed or anything.
You mentioned technical assistance if the rancher wants it. I love that little asterisk, because people don't want to give away any power often. And when you're signing anything that's for any number of years, even something as simple as 10 years, sometimes people feel, that's one hurdle to get over. Then when you think, oh, who's going to be providing me this technical assistance? And do I have to put up with somebody doing this for 10 years and telling me what I should be doing? That's another pill that's hard to swallow. I want to talk about the eco monitoring, though, because this is something that we've seen a lot of interest in with Rancher Stewardship Alliances. Okay, so we are doing these best practices. We think that we're doing good by our soil, by our grasslands with these best practices, but how do we know? So talk to me about that monitoring and how that comes into play.
Yeah, so our monitoring program is pretty extensive. So we monitor, all of the ecological indicators that you imagine, including bird diversity and abundance, and water infiltration, forage quality and quantity, diversity of vegetation, carbon. So it gives the rancher a really good baseline of what we can see on the ranch at a moment in time. And then we will come back and measure those same indicators a couple of years after, and try to correlate that with their grazing management. But as we know, monitoring is a moment in time. And so it doesn't tell us everything we want to know, but it does give ranchers some information that I think would be valuable for management. And it can be expensive. Monitoring can be expensive. So we feel like this is a value to the rancher that we, pay for this, and hopefully that it'll give them some information they need to make changes over time.
Amber, this is not obviously the first time you've heard about this program. It's something I'm sure you are a very critical thinker. So I'm sure it's something that you and your husband looked into extensively before you opted to be an RSVP ranch, but you have since signed on. So how did you go about that decision? Why did your ranch look and subsequently decide to enter into this agreement?
So for us, the first thing I want to say is we've tried working with some other organizations that also had landowner agreement forms. And in those agreement forms, there were negative consequences for breaking the agreement. And we don't own the land, right? We lease, we have a long-term lease with our landowner. And so most of those other programs we've chosen not to participate in, because part of our lease agreement is that we're not tying the land base to any other, what's the word I want to say? Like any other entities that would then create issues if the land was ever up for sale or something to that effect. So that was our first hurdle to cross was making sure this agreement did not tie our landowner to anything that he might not fully understand or that could create issues if we did, if any changes needed to occur. And this one was just really easy. Like agreeing to not plow is basically the agreement we made. And that's something we feel really aligned with our landowner. And it's also something that if something drastic changed on this ranch and we were to plow for any reason, there was not going to be any negative consequences or any way that this agreement was going to stifle any changes we felt need to be made. And I do know that's something important for folks who are managing land, is to feel unencumbered by agreements, and this agreement wasn't cumbersome at all. And for us, we were already grazing planning, we were already doing the things the agreement asked. So really this was just an additive opportunity. And us understanding the precipitous decline of native bird habitat, and us having another organization that came onto this land looking at it through a different lens. So when World Wildlife Team members are here, they bring a different level of land knowledge and care than we do. And I think just a couple falls ago, we were out walking with Aaron Clausen, who's one of the team members here in the Northern Great Plains. And our kids were with us, and he had a drone because we were mapping out some areas we were going to do beaver dam analog projects on. And we were talking about just looking at that coulee system and his explanation of, like, do you see down at this level, you shouldn't be seeing sagebrush here. So if we're able to retain water here, what that increased water table does is over time, it's going to kill the sagebrush at this lower level, because these birds actually need grass, and they need grass seeds, and they need wetland area. And it's just really nice having people who care about the land from a different perspective participating with my family on the land. And that's been a very positive part of this agreement for us. So we've been able to move into doing beaver dam analog projects here at the ranch. We worked with World Wildlife Fund to bring a tour group out to the ranch. And so here we are talking about sage-grouse habitat and talking about native birds. And we maybe had, 40-ish people out on the land with us. And all these sage-grouse started flying up from where we had put in the beaver dam analogs. And it was just a real testament to when there's a thoughtful approach to land management that includes the knowledge of different people, we can make more positive impact over time. So we've really valued this relationship, and it's good for our whole family. The kids love having new people here, and we love being out on the land and looking at it in different ways. And of course, having benefits of resource support. So I think most ranchers often feel, land rich or asset rich and cash poor. And so having opportunities for us to attend education and have that resource support, having opportunities to put in beaver dam analogs that doesn't include my husband and I using our body and time to do that, it's been a real benefit to our operation.
Alexis, is this similar feedback to what you get from most of your RSVP members?
Yeah, we've done a couple kind of surveys with our RSVP enrollees, and we work with 86 ranches over 800,000 acres in the Northern Great Plains. And so we are constantly soliciting feedback to improve our program, because we want to make it as best we can for the ranchers. So we're trying to do it rancher focused instead of, organization focused. So what is the most helpful resources for ranchers. And so we're constantly soliciting that feedback. And what we hear is people are very, maybe even surprised and impressed with the flexibility and the way that we're able to adapt the program for people's specific needs. Because as we know, every ranch is different and is under unique ecological and financial situations. And so we really work with each landowner to figure out what resources would be best for them and how we can support them in their management goals. So we're not prescriptive, and we don't think it's a one size fits all program. We feel like when people enroll in RSVP, they're coming into a network of ranchers and people who support ranches, and then we try to, build the program based on those needs. And so we're constantly like changing and adapting, but people have been really happy, I think, with what we've come up with.
And Alexis, what I'm hearing from you is that you can kind of put as little or as much into this as you want to. There is one rule or one agreement, and that's that we're not going to turn over the ground. But after that, here is all the education, all of the pieces that we can give you. If you want to utilize that, we'd love to help you. If you don't, that's okay too. We know that land's not turning over.
Yeah, we know the land's not turning over, and we do have that grazing plan requirement, just that people are being thoughtful about their grazing, and that we're trying to see, like, how does this certain grazing management impact the ecological indicators. So and then if people don't have grazing plans, we actually have a number of ranches that came to us without grazing plans, and so we hooked them up with a grazing consultant that they were comfortable with and have developed grazing plans. And and then we use our cost share program to help support that grazing plan. So if people are looking to the future, we can say, okay, here's a bucket of money that will help you implement that grazing plan.
Amber, people I'm sure have taken note to the fact that you are now probably wearing WWF swag when you go places. Is there any reaction from folks? What questions do you get now that you get to be one of those people that can speak out for the program?
Mostly the questions are just curiosity and wanting to know. I mean, the beautiful thing and the hard thing about a rural community is everyone's all up in your business. So I'll give an example. We had, I think it's every 2 years, Alexis, that someone monitors birds, or is it annual? 2 years.
That's a good question to ask my bird people.
I can't remember if we had anyone this summer or not, but it was last summer. And the kid ended up showing up. Like, by the time he drove from the other ranch to here, it was late in the night. And so he just parked on the side of our gravel road and slept in his car. Well, of course, you have ranchers. It's summertime here in, the Northern Great Plains. So the sun is getting us all moving by 4:30 in the morning. So we had neighbors who were picking up cattle south of us calling the house and like, there's a strange car parked on your land. And so my husband goes zooming down there, and it's just, we called him the bird boy asleep in his car. So those are the kind of things that get people curious. We have one of my favorite stories, when the young folks were putting in beaver dam analogs, our vet from south of us was coming up through the ranch to, what would we have been doing that time, or in the spring? Probably semen testing bulls. And he had picked up a dog toy that was a stuffed beaver and went out and zip tied it to one of the beaver dam analogs, just to, play tricks on these nice young people who are camping out on our lands. And so those are the kind of ways, like, people are just curious. They have lots of questions. Like, for instance, we had a lot of people who thought the reason we were putting in BDAs is because we thought it would bring back the beaver. And so they were like making fun of us for that idea. And it's like, no, like, this is like tied to our hope that we're reflecting the activity of beaver and that we're increasing our water table, which is good for everything that we're doing. It's like, oh, well, that's interesting. Well, you didn't do enough to make that much difference. Yep, that's absolutely true. On a great big ranch, 60 beaver dam analogs, we could put 50,000 on here, right? But it's all a work in progress, just like everything. Yeah, so just curious, wanting to like tease and poke fun a little, and also ask questions about what we're doing and why. And that's just the case. Anytime you're doing anything that looks a little different, your neighbors are going to have thoughts and opinions about it. So no different than anything else.
86 ranches, 800,000 acres in the Northern Great Plains, Alexis, is what you said. And I know in talking with Aaron Clausen, these numbers blew up way bigger than you all ever expected that they were going to. It was a very quick uptick to your enrollment. Can you tell us more about the demographics and about that, maybe the interest that did take you a touch by surprise?
Sure. So when I was hired, I started with World Wildlife Fund after this program had already been conceived of abstractly. And so when I was hired, it was sort of take this project concept and operationalize it on the ground. And, for me, I also was uncertain of how World Wildlife Fund was viewed in the landscape. So I had worked my entire life in Eastern Montana, and I hadn't really run into World Wildlife Fund ever. And when I was first considering the job, I called people like Leo, and I just called ranchers that I knew. And I said, what do you think about them? Because I was also concerned about my reputation and my work that I had previously done. And everyone I talked to, every rancher I talked to in these that I knew was like, yeah, they're really good people and they care. And we might disagree about some things, but they've been in the landscape and they've been helping build capacity in these landowner-led groups. And so I thought, okay, that's a good sign. So when I started, but I actually didn't know, I was like, would ranchers enroll in a program that World Wildlife Fund was managing? And I didn't know the answer to that. So when we first started enrolling ranches, I actually went to ranchers that I knew and was like, here's a program I'm managing. Does this seem like it's something you'd want to do? And so the first ranches that enrolled were people that I had connections with and knew. And then over time, it just spread by word of mouth, is people would enroll and then maybe a neighbor would talk to them and they would say, WWF is really great to work with. And so it was maybe surprising to me how many people were comfortable. But I think that just shows that World Wildlife Fund had been in the landscape for a decade previously, trying to build, trust and relationships in the communities that we're now working in pretty intensively. So yeah, I think it shows us that the program is valuable to ranchers, which is exactly what we wanted it to be.
And also, I think a great tribute to the employees, yourself,
yes.
Aaron, it's those relationships and those personalities that make it work. For
Yeah.
sure.
And previously so when I came on, we hired a whole new SRI staff, Sustainable Ranching Initiative staff, and made the decision that it was important to hire people obviously in the communities that we want to work in. So we have a staff person, which Amber luckily suggested to us in the Nebraska Sandhills. We have a staff person in Western South Dakota. We've got Aaron in Montana, who everyone knows is such a great asset to WWF. And then we just hired a new employee in Malta. So.
All right, let's do the show me the money, honey. Why am I going to give anybody access to my ranch, and why am I signing an agreement for 10 years? Mm-hmm. Obviously, we know that there is the technical assistance, the eco-monitoring. We talked about putting together a grazing plan, that there is a bucket of money that you all can help to dip into to help with some of these plans and these tangible items that people might need. We talked just barely about the development of infrastructure, but obviously that all costs some that I'm sure you can provide assistance with as well. But at the end of the day, Alexis, what is your sales pitch to a ranch as to financially how this can add some value to their grasslands?
Mm-hmm. So we never try to convince anyone to partner with us. It's we always say that we want people to be enthusiastically sort of like excited about partnering with WWF. So if someone's doing it just for the financial resources, we actually just not discourage them, but we want them to feel comfortable with us as a program. So I think if someone's concerned, and is not like doesn't feel comfortable, then we say, you know what, when you're comfortable, come to us and we want to like totally work with you. But that being said, the financial resources, are, I think, significant in the sense that there's not very many programs that I have seen out there that are really like paying for educational activities in the way that we do. So we generally have about a $5,000 amount per ranch that they can use on travel and registration for educational workshops that they want to attend. And then we will pay fully for Ranching for Profit if they want to attend Ranching for Profit. And then over time, if we see a need or they see a need for something else and they've already met their cap, we can talk about extending that. And then our cost share program, currently it's up to $60,000 per ranch that enrolls. And so it's not a competitive process, which I think is really different than a lot of other programs, is they're not competing with each other for that money. Every ranch is, as long as the project has conservation value and you've worked with one of the SRI specialists, then we will fund ranch infrastructure on your, and we're a little bit more flexible and pretty quick, so we can process those applications quickly. Ecological monitoring costs about $15,000 per ranch per visit. So that's a significant financial investment. And then if the ranch is interested in a grazing consultant or technical assistance, then, we do that case by case, but we pay for the full cost of that too.
So it's never a check that you write to a ranch for, say, an annual stipend for being part of RSVP, but it is, here are these things that we can help you with that we'll either pay for or help you pay for. Yep.
And things like grazing, like if there's a grazing app they want to try for a year, we can cover the costs of that. And as resources come into the program, like what Amber was saying about the beaver dam analog installation, that's even separate from everything else. So if a ranch is interested in that, then we can bring them in, put them on the queue for that sort of work.
Amber, how have you enjoyed spending your thousands of dollars? Because the ranch is so huge. I'm sure you've got just money rolling in.
Well, so here's an example of what it's like to work with World Wildlife Fund. So we spent the last 3 years working with Aaron Clausen on a technology that we all agreed we wanted to implement on the ranch. Aaron worked with us. We sourced outside grants to get it accomplished. And through all of this time, as my husband and I really looked and evaluated the project, thought about our time that we would need to invest to implement the tool, we actually decided we did not want to trial the technology here. And Aaron was like, well, okay, I have a lot of other ranchers who want to try it. We're going to redirect that investment to other ranchers. But at any time, if you guys decide you want to jump in, like, just call me and we'll make sure to work this out. And that's like, the reality is, as ranchers, we're evaluating so many things. And I think particularly as young producers, who may or may not be on family land, who may or may not be running on leases, they're continuously evaluating, like, how is this going to affect the budget long term? Can we actually sustain this tool, this technology, this thing, if we jump into it with a yes? So having partners who are flexible and who understand that, and who have grace around the fact that ranchers are really, truly doing the best they can to feed their families and to make good choices. I'm actually getting emotional right now.
Oh.
It's very nice to have my apologies. It's very nice to have people who show up and understand that complexity. So, yeah, there's other opportunities we have had in the past. And like I said, all of which we ended up moving away from because of the heavy impact, cost, the type of signature required on an agreement document. We just ended up being too uncomfortable to move forward with those. And World Wildlife Fund has been, and their team, like, because all of this is based on people and human interactions and relationships, which is also what Rancher Stewardship Alliance is known for. And disclaimer, I'm a board member, so take that as what it is. But having those solid relationships and working with people who care, who understand the complexity, and are still excited to show up and support makes ranching fun.
I love that. And never apologize for having emotion. I think that is the beautiful part of what we all do, is that we are in it for the right reasons, and it's us. It's not just a job. So I think that's beautiful. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Now, while we understand that every ranch is unique, our goal with this space is really to intrigue and inform by showcasing some of what has worked for others. So whether you're a seasoned rancher that's looking to try something new, or you're just starting out in the industry, Better Than Breakeven is here to provide you with valuable insight and inspiration. We thank you for watching. For all of the contact information for Alexis and her RSVP team, you can head to our website, ranchstewards.org.